Know what I mean?
Welcome to Ernest Roulette,
the only Ernest podcast with a wheel.
Let's give it a spin.
I wonder what the next movie's gonna be.
Ernest Goes to Camp. Ernest Goes to Camp was the first Ernest film released through Disney.
Touchstone Pictures, which was a subsidiary, yeah.
Yeah, under the Disney umbrella in the 80s. Apparently, the higher-ups at Disney came upon Jim Varney at some sort of stock car race, like a NASCAR event, where Ernest came out and waved to the audience and people lost their minds, and he got a better reaction than Mickey Mouse.
Really? Wow.
So they signed a deal.
Mickey was there, too?
In costume.
Oh, okay.
Dumbass. He's not. So Disney sees this. There's some of the higher ups are there at this NASCAR event, and they say, we want Ernest. And they go to Jim Varney, John Cherry, and Coke Sam's and say, we want to make 4 movies. 4 movies.
Oh, yeah? Right away.
Yeah, right away. So let's do this.
They did.
And the first of these movies is, of course, Ernest Goes to Camp. And it was made for $3 million. It came out May 22nd, 1987. It did pretty well. It made $23.5 million.
Now, this is a huge change, shift in tone, shift in budget, shift in everything from Dr. Otto and the Riddle of the Gloom Beam.
Yeah.
Totally different.
Very different movie.
I kind of don't feel the $3 million. It's not like a shoddy movie, but it's just like so simple.
A lot of that money probably just went to like insurance and making sure everyone was there every day. Just making sure people showed up. Jim Varney probably didn't get paid more than like $100,000 to be the leading actor in this movie.
Arguably, yeah.
Arguably, yeah. So the plot of Ernest Goes to Camp. The basics, it's a camp film.
Mm-hmm. Like Meatballs.
Like Meatballs.
Like Camp Nowhere. It's for kids.
Yeah, it feels like it's cut from the same cloth as Caddyshack in a lot of ways, where the main plot is sort of dark and inconsequential to the humor that's actually going on.
Yeah.
So Ernest is a custodial worker at a summer camp for kids.
It's like the handyman or whatever.
Yeah.
And so basically an excuse to get him on the ladder and like fall off the ladder.
Have hammers hit his feet and crap like that, right? So Ernest Goes to Camp is 90 minutes of Disney-funded Ernest entertainment. It opens with a really long, protracted gag where a toilet blows up in his face, and he does the classic, hey. Give me one.
Not bad. Pretty good. You've been
I've been working on it.
Yeah. His dream is to become a camp counselor. It's a glass ceiling he can't break through. The cold opening of this movie, though, has nothing to do with Ernest, camping, or comedy. It's this super dark, supernatural ritual.
A Native American initiation ceremony for young warriors to become a real brave, to become a true member of the tribe. An arrow, a knife, and a rock, or in this case, a form of a hatchet.
Yeah.
It's basically, I'm going to throw something sharp at you 3 times.
And if you're valiant enough, you won't get hurt.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's
the
important.
Knife, the rock, the arrow.
It's important to the plot of the film, but nothing else. It just feels incongruous and like kind of creepy. And I like
it's very creepy. I remember being a kid and it making the movie feel bigger.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the plot involves some troublemaker kids, what they call the
second chancers.
Second chancers are in juvie, and they're going to get brought over to the camp for the summer. And none of the counselors want to take them on, which is when the hierarchy at the camp gets an idea to exploit Ernest. And they go, hey, Ernest, if you want, you can be a counselor to these kids.
Actually, they are assigned a counselor, but they break his leg.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
He's sitting on the high chair, whatever you call it, the thing that lifeguards sit on to watch, and they push the lifeguard tower into the water.
I mean, he deserves it, but it's weird because in movies, usually falling in water means you're safe.
Fine.
Yeah.
But he breaks his leg in the water.
My leg!
that whole scene's crazy. So we've been introduced to these kids by this point in the movie, and they're the lamest tough kids I've ever seen in a movie.
Without sunglasses, they're not kids.
Yeah.
They're not, they're bully. They claim they're bullies, that they're, they're mean and they're on the edge. They're at-risk youth. They just have they're Macaulay Culkin from the black and white music video.
And they're not, they really have no differentiating attitude from the other kids at the camp. But
everyone's just a huge jerk to everyone.
Everyone's
else.
a jerk, which is probably honest. Like, it's pretty authentic to how kids actually.
I guess so, but it's unclear from a storytelling perspective who's
the bad guy.
Who's the bad guy? Because even Ernest is just. Well, I mean, Ernest isn't hurting anyone. Ernest's like very Christ-like and nice, but he's like hurting himself right from the get-go. So it's kind of like, why are they playing pranks on him when you can just kind of leave him and let him?
Yeah, and the scene where that counselor gets hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the same counselor who tries to drown Moose?
There's a bunch of just like blonde guys and blonde kids.
I think it's the same guy because there's a counselor who just throws this kid. He's the scrawniest, smallest kid. He's what, like 7, 8?
Even by the second chancers who are children, he's like the little, they protect him.
And like, he clearly can't swim, and a counselor just throws him in the lake, and it's really dark. And it's like, oh my God, you're going to kill this kid. Like
that scene actually got when Ernest, as Jim Varney, as a grown man goes, oh fuck, like this is going to be a tragedy.
Yeah.
I have to step up and be an adult right now.
In like 2 seconds, Ernest like knocks 3 other kids into the water.
No, they're fine.
Yeah, Ernest's trying to avoid another Jason Voorhees situation.
I love that scene because this whole movie is peppered with these moments where it tries to act like a real movie and it suddenly gets far more serious. And then it gets back into being an earnest movie and the levity kind of comes back into play. And then something like that happens. Or someone gets evicted from their house at gunpoint because the real story of this movie is that there's like a land grab going on.
It's an evil mining corporation. Yep.
The bad guys are super evil in this movie.
Yeah.
They're super evil. The bad
Gordon Gekko level, greed is good, just 80s monsters.
Yeah.
Like they love to blow up the woods.
I would love Ernest Goes to Wall Street.
Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, Gordon Gekko's like grooming him and he just like keeps failing upward.
He realizes an hour and plus into the movie, wait a minute, greed isn't good.
Like, when did these guys go from being the bad guys in movies to being the good guys? Like in 2008 and on, like those are the good guys now.
What do you mean, like Tony Stark?
They're
and
just
stuff?
stupid, rich, and successful, and like they just get whatever they want. And like back when we were kids, like that was the bad guy.
It's because all those hippies grew up and started making movies.
Yeah, like so the bad guy's name is Sherman Cater, and he's played by John Vernon, who's been a bad guy in a bunch of movies. He was the mayor in Dirty Harry. He was like the crooked cop and Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh, right.
He's
a real
Animal House.
RoboCop kind of villain.
Yeah,
is he the one that gets turned into like a ventriloquist dummy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's really good in it. And
that
whenever
movie has a little bit of Ernest lore. We'll probably get to it. Yeah.
Basically, the company he represents is trying to take over the camp. Kikiki? Kikiki. Because this
is also the name of the tribe, which is not a real tribe, and it was just invented for the movie.
Would you rather they use a real tribe?
No.
No. Basically, they want to grab the land that Camp Kikiki is on, and this is all happening in parallel to Ernest trying to make the second chance kids a little less crummy. And every time we see these bad guys, they've got guns. They're shooting beer bottles. They're threatening people. They'll do anything they can to get this land, to the point where when Ernest finally confronts them, he first meets Sherman in a scene where he hands over the land by accident.
The only thing he really accomplishes in this movie is he creates the problem, right?
Yes. Which makes sense.
Yeah.
The Chief St. Cloud is the old Native American chief who only speaks their native language, and his granddaughter, the only other member of their tribe who's still alive, also can communicate with Chief St. Cloud, and she is the camp's nurse.
Yeah.
Now, she's friends with Ernest, but it's not like he's trying to date her. It's not a romantic thing. There's no love interest.
Yeah.
They establish that Ernest wants to be a camp counselor so badly that he's actually learned the language of their Native American people.
It's like a sign language.
Yep, a lot of visuals, a lot of hand gestures.
It was really cool.
And that Ernest is afraid of needles the way a child would be.
Yeah.
But he needs to get his shots because Ernie's a filthy fucking animal. Ernest is just goddamn hasn't even had shots.
All right, it's
an animal.
All right, were needles really this big in the 80s? Or is it just a gag?
It was a scary looking needle. I think it was just
needle.
a gag, but it was like
got like a cup of brown liquid
it's like
in
a
it.
centimeter wide.
Yeah.
It's to humanize him. Hey, ain't you afraid of needles too? So,
But
oh boy,
when she finally puts it in his arm, I didn't remember this, but he the gag is he starts confessing sins.
Yeah.
And he says two things, which are, I took the Lindbergh baby, and I am Joseph Mengele.
I am Dr. Mengele.
Scene end.
I did it. I took the Lindbergh baby. I am Joseph Mengele.
So that's one of the few gags in the movie Ernest gets to do that's like story relevant or involves other characters. There are like 5 scenes in this movie that are just like Jim Varney, the camera, and something stupid happens to him.
Yeah.
Like when he like blows up that kerosene lantern at one point.
Yeah.
Like they're memorable.
When he's lighting that lantern and it has nothing to do with anything, there's a funny joke that I don't get the joke, but it's funny anyway. He lights a match and the match just like makes him zone out. And he just stares at the match for like 10 seconds.
Discovering fire.
Yeah, and then it just goes out and he's like, oh, and then and it happens one more time later in the movie.
The finale.
The finale. And I just thought that was like such a great touch because it's not really a joke. It's just like a weird character trait.
So Ernest speaks this sign language too. And the bad guy, Sherman Cater, shows up to demand the land over from the chief. And he can't communicate with him because it's like a nonverbal thing with the chief. But Ernest shows up and he's like, I'll help you. And Ernest is an accessory to this land grab.
Ernest is noble enough to learn the Native American language that only he and Nurse St. Cloud can communicate with the chief.
Yeah.
So Ernest is hardworking enough to learn a foreign language, but stupid enough to not read the contract and see that they're getting swindled.
Yeah. Which is a great mistake for him to make because he learned that skill through having a heart and being an earnest person, but he does the wrong thing because he's stupid.
Because his name is Ernest.
Yeah. And so the finale of the movie is this evil company now is going to get the land. And the kids are distraught. The second chance kids are going to have to go back to juvie. Like they're not going to learn anything. Just like, oh, I guess the world just sucks.
Because they were finally starting to get into the fun of the camp.
They really were.
Skills,
they were getting disciplined. They made the teepee and everything. We're talking about.
By the way, I don't think Ernest really encourages them to do that. They just kind of do it out of hatred for the other kids and like out of competitive.
Well, Ernest takes them on a hike where he tells them that he was in Vietnam.
He does that, and then they
Ernest was in Nam.
Do they trick him, or does he just gets mauled?
Well,
right?
He gets hurt, and they decide to do first aid with him.
Oh yeah, and then they wrap him up like a mummy, and then they so. There's a bunch of gags with them torturing him.
They're really mean to him.
They're really mean, but it's also like really heightened slapstick with Bugs Bunny jokes.
By like the 4th time, the nurse is like just had it. It's like that was a really lousy thing to do, guys.
Yeah, she finally is an adult here, going like, Ernest is really good to you, and no one else is good to you. Why are you torturing him?
Yeah,
and she guilts them into like taking responsibility.
Yeah. So Ernest, seeing the kids distraught, decides he's going to give a knuckle sandwich to these construction workers that have shown up to start the mining operation.
He picks a bully, the big guy.
He like goes out. He goes out with the kids behind him. He's got his gang of like 7-year-old boys. And he walks up and he goes, I want to see the punk responsible for this operation now. And like this like 300-pound killing machine walks up.
What was his name? He was I think he was like a
wrestler or something.
No, well maybe, but I think he was a NFL or some sort of football guy. Lyle Alzado.
So
that's his name.
Man, this scene. The last time I watched Ernest Goes to Camp was in college with my good friend Matt Sinclair. And Matt Sinclair caught me crying during this scene because Ernest is a grown man. And that's like the one thing he's really got on these kids is he's like a 40-year-old man, you know, with like muscles and facial hair. And he's a little taller and he can drive a car.
He's a little leathery.
And he just gets the crap beaten out of him by this bully at the construction site. And Ernest was literally asking for it. Like he wanted to fight this guy because he wanted to prove to the kids
Ernest picked the fight, not the other way around.
And man, it's not a funny fight. It's portrayed very real. There's high verisimilitude here. Ernest gets hit and getting back up looks like it takes a few extra breaths every time.
You see Ernest's blood in this scene.
It's a scene about a person getting physically beaten to the point where they can't stand back up.
It's actually kind of genius now that I think of it because we have been introduced to the villains and their scenes are all very harsh and there's no comedy there.
There's reality to them.
And all of Ernest's stuff is just slapstick.
Like a Coke machine falls on him. My favorite part of the movie.
Yeah.
And he gets back up somehow. Like, yeah, he has like Band-Aids and stuff, but he's like,
it's like
the next day, nothing's getting me down.
And it's like, well, here's what happens when those two worlds finally meet. Is Ernest's world fails.
The optimism of having this camp for kids and giving them a second chance is met with like, yeah, but you can make money off that land, so get out of here.
Yeah.
And that's the end of Act 2. And the end of Act 2, the bridge into Act 3 is really long because it includes the song, Gee, I'm Glad It's Raining.
I'm awfully glad it's raining, 'cause no one sees your teardrops when it pours.
It reminded me of the scene from the middle of Magnolia where everyone sings an Amy Mann song really sadly.
Sure, I'm glad it's raining. The gentle rhythm soothes the pain inside. I'm glad the stars aren't shining.
The composer Shane Keister did this and Dr. Otto. After this movie left to go to Atlantic Records, did that song, did a bunch of music, including We're Gonna Win This One, which is my favorite song.
Is that like the Rocky montage?
No, you're thinking of Bravehearts.
Okay.
Done by Gary Chapman, which are all like Karate Kid and Rocky reject songs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is Bravehearts the one at the end credits?
Right. No, they play it during the ending credits, but they play it when the kids are like gearing up to fight the construction workers.
Right.
It's like one of the better edited parts of the movie, right?
For sure.
It's
Every
like
shot's really strong and like well framed and well lit. Yeah.
They actually like filmed a lot of stuff specifically for the montage.
Like on every edit.
Yeah.
Like in every beat of the song.
And it just like comes at the perfect time of the movie.
Needs energy. Come on. Like,
and it was a good reminder of like why montages were a big thing.
Yeah. You've been looking at the woods for an hour now. We got to like juice this movie up. After his bittersweet reflection, the kids decide that, no, we're going to fight the camp with Ernest. The kids decide that the kids inspire confidence in Ernest, right? That's how this goes.
They do. I mean, they also like were beating the shit out of him earlier in the movie, but they do eventually. Yeah.
For a movie that's over 30 years old, they could have handled Native American relations, handling Native American, because they are caricatures of Native Americans. They're not a real tribe. They're not real. It's not a real tradition.
I don't think either of the actors are actually Native American either. One of them is Iron Eyes Cody, who was famously the crying Indian from that ad. And,
in the 70s.
Yeah, and he was
the trash, the recycling.
He was actually Italian, but kind of like lived his life as an Indian actor, basically.
They could have gone really, really bad, but they didn't.
And there are movies from that era that did that.
Oh, yeah.
Like from the mid 80s. And in this, no, like they make jokes about Ernest culturally appropriating stuff. Like he says, like, I got to fight for the land of my forefathers. I mean, your forefathers.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's a great line. Or the bit you like.
Oh, yeah.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, yeah. He makes a joke about rock, paper, scissors, and then they just kind of groan at him and roll their eyes and they just like, that's not funny.
Awkward silence. Like,
and is he kind of belittling their culture? Like, yes, so don't do, everyone's like,
he doesn't think he's
do that.
punching down. He just thinks he's like part of the conversation, but he's so stupid.
Yeah.
And the movie's like, stupidity is not an excuse.
Yeah, yeah.
Like in our culture, paper, rock, scissors.
Now, a salient point throughout all this is when the kids are all preparing to go to war, and Chief St. Cloud is doing the war paint on them, and the camera pans, from right to left, and Nurse St. Cloud is there establishing, this is serious.
She says, Father, you can't do this. These are children. That's the exact line. And then the camera reveals Ernest is with the kids.
That's when she says something to the effect of, and I hope you have it written down there, of, Ernest, these are grown men.
So she says, like, you guys have your prank war. I'm going to go to a lawyer.
Yeah.
She actually solves the problem.
Yeah, like, in the meantime, they build like a mobile
Macaulay
prank
Culkin
station.
stuff.
It's basically like a mobilized Home Alone situation. The kids are going to decide, like, they see Ernest all down in the dumps. They're like, no, we're going to take back this land by force. And they build a bunch of weapons based on all the pratfalls that Ernest went through earlier in the movie.
Yeah, it's actually very neat because they all the silly like snapping turtle jokes and stuff from earlier in the movie become weapons against the bad guys.
Like the kerosene lantern that blew up earlier.
Yeah.
He uses that. He has the match gag again. The only thing that doesn't come back is a Coke machine falling on them or something.
Yeah. They also steal like dynamite. There's a lot of explosions in this scene, which I was super impressed with because usually like kid prank movies don't have a lot of like explosives.
Yeah.
There's one scene where Ernest has a pet turtle and he's talking to this turtle and, predictably it reaches out and grabs onto his nose.
Oh, you said you weren't going to do this again.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. And then the kids come in and, they help him out by singing the song, Happy Together from the 60s. And apparently you guys didn't realize the joke here. You thought it was a Monkees song, right?
I did. I thought it was by the Monkees.
It's by the Turtles. That's the joke.
If you're going to make that joke, you got to hang a better lantern on it.
I guess so. But I do like that there is a kind of like a signature song.
Yes.
And there's other songs in the movie, but like as a kid, I remember that being kind of my example of like, sometimes there's an old pop song that's like a big part of a movie, you know?
So from the beginning of the movie, there's this running gag with was it a golf cart?
Yeah, it's just some sort of like, maintenance cart that Ernest's driving around and he parks it and it just takes off by itself. And throughout the movie in the background, it just keeps whizzing by and you're just like, that's funny. It's still out there.
It's kind of the soul of the movie in a weird way.
I guess so, yeah. But it comes back at the end like so many things. And I think it's like, the big strong guy who beat Ernest up is, he's about to like really take them out with a bulldozer. And
he's like knocking over houses and stuff.
Yeah, he's just like, well, fuck it, like we're gonna win. And the kids see the cart. It miraculously finally stops right in front of them. And they're like, all right, do they like put dynamite in it or something?
They put like some explosives in it, and then Ernest just kamikazes it into the bulldozer.
Oh, he jumps out before the explosion.
Yeah.
And they kill this guy. Well, they don't kill him because he gets out. He stumbles out. He's all blackened from the soot.
And
he's cartoon beat up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the way Ernest, like, he like picks up the guy's jaw and the way he like backhand punches him is like very like Buster Keaton. And I like that about it. It's like very like an animated punch. It'd be one, if Ernest just like socked him one, it wouldn't be that Ernest.
It might be the only time Ernest punches someone in any of the movies. I guess we'll see. Yeah.
Made me think of Popeye.
Yeah.
Like the little guy beats Big Bluto. He won. He's earned it.
Then Sherman shows back up. The thing with Sherman, the one thing we've seen him do multiple times in this movie is fire a gun. And despite the protests of Sherman's lawyer, he decides he's just going to shoot Ernest. That's how he's going to win. He's just going to shoot him with his gun. There's this setup at the very beginning of the movie that those who are pure of heart in this tribe simply can't be killed.
By the ritual. Or by anything.
By anything.
Okay.
Yeah, by anything. So Ernest apparently is pure of heart because when Sherman aims his rifle at him,
he's just going to straight out murder Ernest.
He's just going to shoot him in front of the kids.
Yeah.
He pulls the trigger, the gun goes off, nothing happens.
I will murder you for the land that I actually legally own. But
and he fires at Ernest like 3 times. And
he like
happens.
keeps walking closer each time. And it's playing like the same sound cue from the beginning and the music's coming up and Ernest is starting to realize, I think, right?
Yeah, like, oh, I'm pure of heart. I'm valiant. Like, I am not going to get hurt. And there's this great gag where like the guy gets like right on top of Ernest. He's like 2 feet away from him. And I thought this was interesting. He goes to pull the trigger and then he just doesn't. He doesn't shoot the gun at point blank range.
Because Ernest puts his finger in the gun, right?
Yeah, but the gun would still work. Like, that doesn't stop guns from firing.
But is it that he realizes, like, oh, there's something supernatural afoot here?
He's scared.
Yeah.
And you had an issue with this, right? Didn't you think this is kind of screwed up to put in a kid's movie?
Yeah, the lesson here is guns can't hurt you, right?
Go find your dad's gun.
Yeah, you saw what Ernest... Yeah.
Go find your dad's gun, and if you're brave, it won't hurt you.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
It's pretty cool. It is, it is.
It's problematic though.
It's problematic, but I forgot about it and I wasn't I thought this was like the one Ernest movie where there's no supernatural elements, but I was wrong. Apparently it's part of Ernest. Well, no, I'm trying to remember if I know at least the rest of the Disney movies, there's something supernatural going on, certainly with the Santa Claus stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And magnets. But we'll get to that. We'll get
Yeah.
to that.
So the kids and Ernest defeat them. Ernest literally says, quote, "Well, it's over."
And then Nurse St. Cloud shows up with some legal
holds a piece of paper.
papers, and she says, "Hey, you don't have to do anything. I got a statement from a judge.
The judge issued a restraining order.
Yeah, and I think that's just to tie up the loose ends to make sure they don't come back. But it also totally negates everything Ernest and the kids did.
The restraining order is given the most heroic shot of the movie.
They actually probably damaged the camp more with all the explosives and pranks.
But now Ernest is a counselor.
He is.
And he's invincible.
And he's a god.
One interesting thing about this, Ernest doesn't do any characters in this movie. Like he does some voices and, some like soliloquies and stuff, but he does not get into disguises. He doesn't play, the Aunt Nelda was her name. Yeah. He doesn't do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
It never breaks out of the film. There's never any like imagination sequences.
They call attention to the fact the supernatural stuff happens. Like it's a build up. The whole movie's about this one supernatural thing that's going to happen.
And that's kind of shrugged off after it happens too.
Now I'm back to being a dipshit.
Yep. Oh, no Vern.
No Vern either.
No Vern.
Although he does mention Vern as the protagonist in a scary story he's telling to the children.
right.
He's telling the hook story. yeah.
So Neil, what's some funky stuff that you learned?
Oh yeah, I was looking at the IMDb and let me just get my notes in order here. Fuck. I was looking at the IMDb trivia and I noticed 4 things that I am going to need a citation on. Okay. Number 1 is Muppeteer Jim Henson has an uncredited cameo appearance as one of Sherman Crater's miners. No.
What? No.
Jim Henson wasn't friends with Jim Varney or anything.
Barely a Disney movie.
He was probably very busy working on Labyrinth at this time.
Yeah.
I looked into it. There's a guy who looks kind of like Jim Henson, but it's not Jim Henson.
Yeah.
But that's just going to be on IMDb forever, and people are going to believe it. 2, the middle initial Ernest P. Worrell fittingly stands for Power Tools.
Yes.
Now, I've seen other references to this.
It's true.
It's true?
Yep.
I couldn't find anywhere that's mentioned, though. I couldn't find the origin of that.
It's from an old Ernest commercial.
But have you seen the commercial?
Yeah.
You have? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But it's
his name
inconsequential
is
to
Power
this movie.
Tools.
Right,
Why is it on the IMDb page?
Yeah, I don't think he uses power tools, and he probably does. Whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, the next one. Lyle Alzado, who plays the foreman, broke Jim's nose by mistake during the fight scene. Jim said that the crack you hear in the movie wasn't added later. Now, I'll buy that he actually got his nose broken. Actually, some of the blood does look kind of realistic in that scene.
But there's no way they're actually hitting each other.
Well, there were a couple stunts where I could see like, oh yeah, maybe he broke his nose there. But the sound effect in the movie, each time he gets hit, it's a movie sack of meat being punched. It's totally not a real nose breaking.
It's like
sound
BBC
effect.
Sound Effect Library Punch 3.
Yeah,
Totally.
Yeah.
Now I'm not calling Jim Varney a liar. I don't know if he actually said that. Maybe it's in a movie commentary track somewhere. But moving on. At the end of the movie, this one's such bullshit.
Is great.
At the end of the movie, as Ernest leads the boys on a hike, one of the boys, obviously an adult with long frizzy hair, turns around and smiles. That boy is Mark Volman, one of the founders of the Turtles, whose biggest hit was the song Happy Together.
Absolutely categorically untrue.
Ernest is not leading the boys on a hike at the end of the movie.
Yeah, and Ernest gets like crushed by the sign again.
Yeah, he's up on a ladder.
That's the last shot of the movie.
And you see the boys, they're facing the camera, so nobody's turning around. They're in the background, but they're too small to see. It's just like...
What a weird convoluted lie to post on IMDb.
It doesn't happen.
All right, well, but why the Turtles thing? Why lie about that?
I don't know, man.
It's not like a clever lie. It's not.
Maybe this guy, Mark Volman, he's going around saying this to people. Yeah?
What's your favorite gag in the movie?
Ooh.
I'll go first. There are a lot of good pratfalls and gags in the movie. My favorite is when the kids are having a fight at the dining hall and Ernest shows up and is like, "What are you kids doing?" And they immediately start bullying Ernest because there's like 200 kids and they smack him in the face with a lunch tray and imprints upon him. There's like a silhouette of Jim Varney's face, and they can't
I
get
thought that was a little much.
That was funny because like he starts going, I can't breathe. And they're like, okay, Ernest, this is going to hurt, but like, don't move. And they just whack him right in the face with this cast iron skillet. And he like falls back like 10 feet, hits a Coke machine and collapses onto the floor. It looks painful as hell. And then for some reason, the Coke machine, a good 5 seconds later, just slams down on him. And you just hear him give this defeated, painful highlight of the movie for
Good,
me.
yeah. One gag I really liked, it's not even an Ernest gag, is when the second chancers show up.
Yeah.
And the camp counselor says like, all right, kids, line up. And they all like turn around and they like put their hands against the bus.
My favorite bit is when Ernest fights a badger off camera because it's stupid. There aren't a lot of people who could pull that off.
Yes.
I want you to pretend to fight a badger that the audience and the camera can't see.
Yeah.
You just need to do it all with your body. It's all physical comedy, and he nails it.
And this is like
he actually makes it funny.
This is like a Hollywood movie. They've got millions of dollars, like real film cameras, like producers. They're like, okay, Jim, you just got to make a funny face and scream. And it's still a memorable beat of the movie.
I mean, that's his bread and butter. You know what's not funny? The secondary comic relief in this movie.
Oh, we haven't talked one bit about these guys.
So
They're bad.
They're all right. If you know Ernest movies, you know there's usually two guys who aren't Ernest, but they're also funny, and they usually have some random job.
And there's like a weird revolving roster of men that play these dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in this movie, so it's Gaylord Sartain or something like that.
Yeah.
He's in the next two
Couple of Ernest movies.
Yeah. But his buddy in the movie is some other guy. He's got kind of a weird British accent and a hat.
And they play chefs.
They play chefs, and they're just trying to make some sort of egg dish called Eggs Erroneous.
Yeah.
And they're just not, it's not fun. It's not funny.
They're like it seems like they're trying to make children's humor, but they've never made children's humor. It's like a bad All That skit.
They're just rambling.
Yeah.
They have
Yeah.
no script. They're just kind of going off.
It's strange because these characters only occupy screen time with Ernest like once every movie. Like these interchangeable like second banana dudes. And I just don't, they're played like they're comedic relief for Ernest.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like the opening band. Like Ernest is giving them a
Yes!
shot to be in.
Yes.
He's giving them a shot to like get some screen time, but they're not helping.
Yeah.
They're like Garfield and Friends, you know how.
The barnyard motherfucker. Yeah. You know I love the pig.
Anyway, so let's load up the other movies that we've watched as part of the series and figure out where Ernest Goes to Camp fits in the roster.
So we've only watched two, Dr. Otto and the Riddle of the Gloombeam and Ernest Goes to Camp. What is the better movie?
Ryan.
On my money, Dr. Otto and the Riddle of the Gloombeam. I had to stop Ernest Goes to Camp at one point halfway through to take care of other adult responsibilities, and it became kind of hard to put it back on. Dr. Otto has more heart, I think, more energy, more ambition.
Goes to Camp does take a little while to get going, which is true of a lot of 80s movies, especially, you know, like set in like a camp, you know, kind of a boring location. Dr. Otto, I think the pacing problems are worse. It loses steam, whereas Goes to Camp gains steam, picks up. It kind of hits that sweet spot of Ernest in a sincere setting, with a little bit of supernatural, with a little bit of heightened reality gags, but with ultimately with stakes that really matter, that actually resonate with you and like really hit you in the gut.
Sure.
And for that reason, I'm going to put it over Dr. Otto, which is more of an oddity, a weird kind of a gonzo film that's fun to watch and fun to talk about, but not something I would just throw on for people who haven't been initiated.
It's weird out of the gate. The first two movies we watched are personally so neck and neck for me.
Yeah.
Because Dr. Otto is so creative and off the wall. If it was 40 minutes of just the best stuff, easily I would rewatch Dr. Otto. But it's 90 minutes of not a lot happening. Whereas Goes to Camp gains steam, as you said. It gets better in the second half. And just the pratfall humor is why I show up for Ernest. And there's like half a dozen really sound gags in the movie that made it for me. And the more we talk about the story, the more I realize, there was some effort put into this script. So yeah, I will put Ernest Goes to Camp above Dr. Otto. So
That's okay. That's two beats one. We're an Ernest-based democracy. That's important.
And I should point out, both these films are movies that Jim Varney saved.
yes.
Basically, neither would be worth watching without the performance of Jim Varney.
Without question. So as of now, at the end of our second episode of Ernest Roulette, the best Ernest movie we have watched is Ernest Goes to Camp, followed by Dr. Otto and the Riddle of the Gloom Beam. Who knows what the ranking will be at the end of our third episode. So join us next time on Ernest Roulette when we'll spin the wheel and watch an Ernest movie.
Oh boy, I can't wait to watch another Ernest movie. How about you, Ryan?
Can't wait.
So Disney signs on John Kerry.
John Kerry.
Please edit that out.